You know, life has a way of surprising us. We've all had unexpected moments that really end up impacting who we are. I'm Chavie Brooke, and let me tell you, I've had my fair share of these moments. On Totally Unexpected, I don't just interview my guests. We have long, meaningful conversations to explore the twists and the turns that change their lives. You won't only be hearing from the guest, you'll be hearing from me and my thoughts and reflections, just as I would be doing in real life. These aren't traditional interviews, they're conversations about struggle, growth, and the moments that make us human. We all just want to feel connected, at least I do. And if we end up feeling a little less alone, that would make me so happy. Welcome back to Totally Unexpected. It is great to be back, just coming back from winter break, which felt more like a summer break. Felt really long. Sunday night before I was getting Hanalei ready for bed, and I'm like, are you ready for your first day of school? I mean, we just had a 2-week break, but I don't know. It felt like a longer break this year. So it's good to be back. It's good to be doing the things that I love. And it is really exciting to share the guest of the day, which is none other than Yocheved Sidof. Yocheved is a special person. We actually have personal connection from many years ago where we connected over our children needing some outside support and navigating that whole time of life. And it was really beautiful to have someone to connect with over that. And since then, we were almost going to do a retreat together. I had asked her to be part of my retreat in Bozeman, and then I mentioned this in the episode. It got canceled in the end, but we've always had a connection, and it was a guest that I've always wanted to have on. So I'm really, really happy that Yocheved is here. And Yocheved is a spiritual and social entrepreneur, teacher, and guide devoted to cultivating deeper ways of being rooted in Torah, presence, and lived faith. She's the founder of Ohmek, a contemplative community offering sacred spaces for spiritual deepening, healing, and remembrance through learning, ritual, and embodied practice. Yocheved leads healing pilgrimages to Poland and Israel, inviting participants to meet history, grief, and holiness with courage and consciousness. She draws on Jewish mysticism, trauma-informed wisdom, and decades of leadership experience, while currently pursuing a PhD in transpersonal research. Her words speak to women seeking a spiritual grounded path that honors devotion, depth, and the quiet unfolding of the soul. That's quite the bio, and she deserves it. And I think that you will feel all of these things come through the interview. And I really can't wait for you to listen. So without further ado, Yocheved Sidof. If you want to sponsor, please reach out. I think it's not a secret that podcasts are funded through sponsorships and advertisements. There's no secret way to go about it. And I would love to partner with all of you and any of you. Please reach out. All my contact information is in the show notes. And we're very grateful to all our partnerships and all our sponsorships.
Yay, hi.
How are you?
Makeup and shades on. I chose makeup.
You know what? You look stunning. I love it.
Thank you.
I love the scarf. It's gorgeous.
Thank you. I got it in Israel by Ita's wedding.
Yeah.
Wait, myself. And I love it. It's a sudra. I don't know if you've seen or heard of these.
No, tell me.
They go back to Babylonian times, to how Jews would cover their hair, their heads, really, like men, really, with these sudras, which were
like a turban.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've been taking on a resurgence, because Hashtag Jewish Pride.
Yes. Oh, wow. Look at that. And you can like do them in many different ways, I'm sure,
Yeah,
right? Like,
it's a
yeah.
full scarf situation.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so happy you're here.
Mm.
And it's going to be great. I'm trying to think the first time we connected was over WhatsApp, right?
Yes, when I reached out to you.
Yeah, you messaged me
Mm-hmm.
and we've experienced similar paths with one of our children. And we were connected over that, which was incredible. And then we were supposed to do a retreat together.
No,
Remember that?
I remember that. That was
A few years ago, I was so excited. And then, this is where you have to really lean into Hashem because a few weeks before the retreat, we had a very, very, very crazy winter, and the roof of the location that we were supposed to do the retreat in caved in. It was too soon to find, they were trying to send me all these different properties that we could use, and none of them were appropriate for what we needed. And so I canceled. And it's always interesting to look back at like, why do you think that happened? And I think I was stressed out. Like I was in a very stressed out place and I was really nervous about pulling it off.
mhm.
And Hashem kind of like took care of that, I guess. I don't know.
Gave me a very attuned pass.
Yeah. And I was like, I would never like cancel something. Maybe now I would, I'd be more tapped in, but then I don't think I would be brave enough to cancel something just because I wasn't feeling it or I actually was really feeling it. I was very excited, but I was very overwhelmed. And I don't think I would have been brave enough to call it because of that. Like I needed an outside
Right. You need
circumstance to make that happen.
a roof falling in.
Yeah. Literally. I learned a lot from that actually. Like that did help me like tap into myself and pay attention to these things that were actually telling me something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that comes with lots of practice.
Yeah, I had a similar situation last year where I ended up, for different reasons, canceling both of my Poland trips.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And the first one I canceled more publicly.
Yeah.
I shared how I was recognizing my hustle patterning coming through
Mm-hmm.
because I had led a glorious, deep, revolutionary trip the year before. And I was like, oh, this is working. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To do it not just one more time, but two more times. And recognizing the hustle, overachieving, my worth is related to my output, productivity, like all of that so clearly. Like, no, actually, I need slash want to actually cancel this. And the word canceling doesn't even feel right.
I know.
It's
It
more of just
doesn't.
listening. It's like a deep listening, a deeper listening.
Yeah.
And the second time I felt no need to make it public. It was just
Right.
like, this is not gelling. Like the field is speaking to me. This is not
Yeah.
gelling.
So it's such an interesting process. It's so similar because I had done a retreat and it was like, wow, this is great. Like I'm doing this now.
Mhm.
And then the second one came around and what we just spoke about and I haven't gone back since. I'm like I don't feel that that's where I need to put my energy right now.
Mhm.
And I think it comes from which I can't wait to delve in a deeper way, but becoming sensitive, becoming more aware to your energy, the energies around you. And it's such an interesting process. And for me, I intellectualize everything. I feel like I live a lot in my head, even though like it's like I could tell you exactly how I'm feeling and pay attention and buy into that. But am I actually feeling it in my body somatically is
Yeah.
so much harder for me.
You can think your feelings very well.
Yes, I'm a master at that. So my work is like, okay, getting it back into my body and not always bringing it back to like in my head.
Mhm.
And that is, I hit a lot of walls doing that.
It's a lot of our work.
Yeah, yeah. But okay, so I want to really go back to the beginning with you because I know you have a fascinating history. I just don't know any details, and I'm so excited to hear your origin story. Like where you come from, who your ancestors are, how does that play a role in your life today? So if you can take us back a little bit.
Yeah, I would love to. I'd be honored. So, my family is Iranian, Persian Jews that likely were in Iran for about 2,500 years.
Wow.
So, likely from the Babylonian exile. Yeah. And for most of my life, I knew that, like what you're saying, I knew that intellectually, like I'm
Yeah.
Iranian, my parents are Persian. And I would say the last few years, and I really feel gifted this,
Mm,
the awareness that comes through that information
yeah.
is very profound. And I'm really feeling my ancestors, really feeling them through me and just what it means to carry a lineage like that and just the ancient quality of the soil that's in
Yeah.
us and 2,500 years in one land. And most of us Jews have had to travel quite a bit, immigration and persecution and
Yeah.
displacement. And so there is something about having a lineage that is in so rooted in one place. Most of my ancestors going back probably for maybe even 5 generations were related to each other. My great grandmother is from Bukhara. She's like the fresh blood.
Wow.
And the reason for that is my ancestors come from Mashhad, Iran. And Mashhad was a very religious city in Iran. And in the 1800s, there was a pogrom, the details of which are very fascinating. And essentially, it was a blood libel.
Mhm.
And the Jews of the town were gathered, and they said either you convert to Islam or there'll be mass executions.
Wow.
And so, when these are my ancestors going back, so there was a collective agreement that they would convert, and they held their Judaism underground, literally underground.
Like the Inquisition, like the
Yeah,
Marranos.
yeah, and except that they were able to keep their Jewish identity alive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
underground Brit Milah, underground shachting of chickens, underground, and they had all these ways to keep their businesses closed on Shabbos so that they weren't, in violation of Shabbat and keeping their families
Wow.
safe under this identity of new converts. And the women of my lineage were the smugglers. They were the ones who would, under their chador, would smuggle tefillin, siddurim, ritual objects.
That's unbelievable. Do you have this documented? Like, how did you trace this back?
So I knew this. I mean, Mashadi Jews have a certain pride.
Yes.
I,
Yes.
my father ended up immigrating in the early 70s and met Chabad in 72, and I was raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, in a very small Chabad community. So
Wow.
I wasn't raised with other Mashadis, but I was still
Right.
raised with this
Yes.
pride of we held on to our lineage, and we did.
Yeah.
So I always knew this, but a few years ago, I was very steeped in ancestral work, and I was in a particular meditative state. And in that state, I really felt my ancestors, the presence of my ancestors. And a very short while after exiting this state, I found myself on Facebook.
Mm.
And there was this article that somebody posted about the Mashadi Jews. And
Wow.
literally, the person sharing this story was somebody with the last name Zar, which of my four grandparents, three are czars, and the one that's Amrami is their mother is a czar. So my family is
Wow. That's your family.
that's my family, and through this, there were so many details about this blood libel. It literally was a blood libel. A Jewish woman accused of killing a dog and using its blood in a way to defame and disrespect the Muslim imams.
Mm.
And so learning that was just like, oh, wow, this is the lineage of hiding in my system.
Mm-hmm.
This is the lineage of sometimes afraid to use the voice. And this is also the lineage of profound faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the story of what's called the Alodan, this story of the Alodan really has been a real source of inspiration and information for me in many ways.
Yeah, I think as a Jewish people as a whole, like I talk about this a lot with my therapist because especially after October 7th and holding all this trauma and he's not Jewish and he always comes back to this and reminds me like your people hold so much and it's not like a little thing. Like it lives inside of us and it actually dictates how we react, how we feel, how like you said, like this hiding or this fear and alongside of that, the strength and the faith and the resilience that come along with that. So talking about ancestry can feel like disconnected or unrelated to your life today, but I think it's so relevant. It's who we are, it's what we carry. And also like raising children that I didn't birth. So my adopted children, you also come to understand their history, their ancestors, and where they came from, which a lot of times I don't know, but it does play such a big role in who they are. People are always like, nurture and nature, nurture and nature. I'm like, of course it's both. Of course it's both, right? And you cannot ignore nature. Like
Absolutely.
people want to convince you like, oh, it's how you raise them. It's how you raise them. It's how you raise them. And there's so much truth to that environment and impact and influence. But I see in all of my children, and it's something that I cherish and I appreciate about them. And I want them to appreciate eventually when they can, like who they are.
Mhm.
And maybe we don't know all the details, but the thing, like little things that come out, like my son Manny, like the things that his talents and the things he does and how he's in the world has nothing to do with my husband and I. Like you know what I mean? Like it is just ingrained in him from where he came from. And I think it's so powerful. I often don't think that we pay enough attention to that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the ancestral and collective realms are so powerful, and it's the soil of our soul.
I love that. How I've never thought of it that way, but
Mhm.
it's like where we grow from, right? It's the foundation.
Yeah, it's where we go from, and it takes a certain readiness to be willing to face
Yes.
some of that ancestral material, and
Yeah,
it's not a process that we can force,
totally.
and it takes a kind of deep listening to hear how they are reverbing through us in some way, and to feel like we learn in Chassidus, we learn in Kabbalah, like we're all interconnected in so many ways. And so when we take time with where we come from, we are healing.
Yeah.
We are healing ourselves and our ancestors and our descendants. And I think it's so beautiful that you are sensitive to where your children come from. And they being your children now, like their lineage is now part of your lineage. Like
100%.
they're woven, and that only really can become meaningful if you're conscious of it. So it's beautiful, Chavie.
Yeah. Did you find that there was that part of your life you were not ready to dig into that, and then there came a time where it was ready, or it was just never on your forefront? It was just never something that you paid attention to? I mean, besides for your, like, pride that came along with how you were raised. But was there a time that you were just like, okay, I'm ready to get deeper? And before it was like a little bit of an avoidance?
Let me feel how to answer that because there's lots of layers to that.
Mm,
Well, specifically in relation to my ancestry or my cultural heritage, I think there was a lot of just the reality of being raised in a small Lubavitch community
yes.
as one of the only Sephardic brown kids. And my parents were very much on their own path in really landing in a Lubavitch community. So I was raised with like Sephardic practice and Chabad practice,
Mhm.
parents who like cry at the Shabbos table when they're talking about the Rebbe, but also like, are we Lubavitchers? We're not Lubavitchers.
Oh, interesting.
And since I remember myself, I received Chassidus in a very specific, very deep, embodied way before I even could really articulate what it was, but something has always really landed in me through Chassidus and through the Rebbe and through just, and so there was a sense of like, I feel such deep belonging to this
Mm,
lineage, this spiritual stream, but yet I don't really fit in, but yet I do really fit in. Probably in a way I fit in ways that you don't even see how I fit. It was
yes.
yeah. So I think in that way, yes, it took me time to start feeling that where I come from is not a nuisance, but actually like such a gift.
Mm,
And I think the portal of belonging, the wounds around belonging, and also the medicine of being a kind of chameleon is something that really lives through me and is, I think, one of the gifts that I offer in many ways. And the other layer I'll speak to right now is, you talk about readiness. I don't think it's just readiness in the ancestral realm. It's just in
yeah.
general readiness. And I don't feel that as linear. Like
Mhm.
you go through this and then you're ready for that. I see it as it's kind of it's a yes and like there is something linear. Like the more I live, the more we all live life, life is teaching us, life is priming us, life is molding us. And the learning, if we're paying attention, is just always emerging.
Yeah.
Um, and so there is something like the evolution of becoming, like the process, but also things can just happen spontaneously.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
we learn something and we integrate
Yeah.
something and then we feel like we're going back around the spiral. And it's like, so yeah, yes, and yes,
Yeah.
evolution in it. And also like we're always cooking.
Yeah. It's never linear. Everything is always just a flow. And sometimes we feel we're maybe moving backwards, but that's really part of our journey as well. It's just not linear. I kind of sometimes think a bit of it as like a wave, like there's waves,
Mm,
that come and there's seasons and but when we try to put things in a box, in like a neat little box, which we tend to try to do, right? As humans, we're always trying to fit things into these little boxes, which is another great big topic I want to talk about with you. And what stuck out for me was something you said about this feeling of other and do I belong? Do I not belong? I belong so deeply inside of me, but maybe outwardly it doesn't look like I belong or I don't feel like I belong. And, it's so interesting to me the more that I talk to people and the more that I'm really aware of my own experience, there is this phenomenon about this otherness. Like I used to feel like it was only me, right? I don't fit in and look at my life. It's so different and the way that I built my family and how we move through life as a family, how I show up. Like I always feel like a little bit on the outside or otherness. And then people can look at me and think that that's you feel that? That's crazy. But the more I talk to people, I feel like everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but many people have this experience of otherness.
mhm.
Do you think that that's just part of the human experience?
Yeah, it's interesting as I'm listening to you, like something is coming through. It's part of the divine experience.
Yeah.
Yes, we all feel othered, we all feel alone, we all crave belonging, and we all go through a process where we make peace with that desire to belong.
Hmm.
And and how normal and natural and human it is to want to be seen and reflected in the other, and how painful it is to be othered.
Yeah.
And like the divine created a world because he did not want to be alone.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what I mean by it's like it's more than human, it's divine. It's like the
It's divine.
divine contracted itself to create space for an other to emerge so that we can be in relationship, so that we can forget each other sometimes, so that we can find each other again. And so when I feel other or alone or I don't belong, can I feel that as an expression of some higher divine movement of like, I want you to find me.
Hmm.
I want you to find me. I want to belong. I want to be of you.
Wow. I've never thought of it that way because I'm always like, oh, it's the human experience. But the way that it's so beyond the human experience. It's the divine. And putting it in the perspective like Hashem created the world so he wouldn't be alone.
Yes.
Wow, that really is
Mm,
so impactful. So growing up in Minneapolis in a small Chabad community, what was that like
St.
for
Paul.
you? St. Paul.
St.
Sorry. St. Paul. Twin Cities, St. Paul. Gotta differentiate.
Yeah. What was that like? Well, it was beautiful. It's very cold.
Yeah.
It's very small.
I live in that region now, so
Yeah.
I feel it.
Yeah, cold. Went to small school, Lubavitch Cheder, which I have many memories. Mostly fond, some harder, but
Yeah.
overall really beautiful. I mean, I think everyone, when they reflect on their education, probably has a
A
common.
mixture of all things.
And it was a small community, smaller community. My parents were both very, very active, and that was a huge model for me. I mean, my mother's always cooking for something or organizing something or doing a kiddush or visiting somebody. Just and my father was always involved also, and there's a community where lots of people have moved away over the years, and
Yeah.
I won't sugarcoat it. It's very hard to go back and visit it right now. It's much, 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 much smaller, much more different than
Yeah.
it was when I was there, and yeah, and it's kind of this painful reality of Chabad communities and just how shluchim and the relationship with shluchim and congregants and the evolution of growth and what nourishes them. But I have so much love and gratitude and respect for the shluchim of St. Paul, Minnesota. My father met Rabbi Moshe Feller in 1972, Chabad on campus. There's pictures of him from the Star Tribune. Jews
Mhm.
broke, handlebar mustache. He walked into Sukkah Mobile. He
Wow.
recognized it from his childhood. And his father had said, "Find Jews when you go to the university. Find the Jews," and the Jews found him literally. And I can trace so much. And every Sukkot, I tell the story of Mivtayim and the courage of Lubavitch Shliach, a young Shliach, and my father's courage to walk in and say,
Yeah.
and so I have, and I learned so much Chassidus in those years as a young child in Minnesota. I had really beautiful teachers. It was the 80s, early 90s. And, that's what to be Lubavitcher then was special.
Mhm.
Well, the hookup for Brangans and Messiah and Hanukkah Live and the Nagonim every year with the Rebbe's birthday. And like we were in that,
Embodied it.
we were in that time and it was really special.
Yeah. So what was next after your youth, what was next? Did you go to university? Did you go to or college, or what was your next step?
I went to high school in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
I I was of the time where people would ask the Rebbe for a bracha, and the Rebbe would nod. And so it was, do I stay in Minnesota another year or do I go to Pittsburgh? And the Rebbe nodded. It was after the stroke, right?
Mm.
So I spent my high school years in Pittsburgh, which were also really beautiful and interesting and formative. And in 11th grade, I started getting anxiety attacks.
Oh.
I was quite bored.
Mm.
I was head of production. I was working at Pinskers Judaica twice a week. I was volunteering once a week with people who had cognitive and physical disabilities. And I was drinking tons of coffee and lost weight, and I was just bored.
Wow.
And I think I felt, yeah, I felt ready to move on from this chapter of high school, and yeah, and I left.
Yeah.
It's just
So in 11th grade?
I went early admissions to Stern College. Uh,
Oh my gosh, this is so fascinating.
yeah, so I was 17 years old. I moved to Manhattan
On your own.
on my own. I mean, Stern College, Yeshiva University is a fantastic university. It was definitely, there was ripples in Yeshiva in Pittsburgh that I left and that I left to go to college. And I got all the, well, I don't know if you'll ever get a shidduch kind of stuff.
Wow.
And I wanted to graduate high school or at least be acknowledged at the high school graduation. And they didn't want to do that. And so I just,
Mm.
it was kind of sad. And now
Yeah.
as an adult and as an educator, I think that maybe there was an opportunity missed there.
Yeah,
Um, but,
definitely.
but that's what it was. I was very confident that it was time for me to move into the next chapter of my life. And I went to college uber focused on becoming a clinical psychologist.
Okay.
Now I was at that point for a number of years, I had this idea that I'm a woman and I've learned Chassidus and I'm going to be like this amazing kind of psychologist that can blend in
All the worlds.
all the worlds and understand how it is we become who we are meant to become. That was my driving
At
force.
17, that was your vision.
Yeah, earlier at 10.
Earlier.
At 10.
How?
Well, I was at my grandparents' house. My grandparents moved to Minnesota from Iran by the revolution in 79.
Okay.
And there was a textbook of my uncle, Vishala, my dear uncle Aaron. And I guess it was a psychology textbook from one of his classes in high school. And I read all of these like subdivisions of psychology, including developmental psychology. And I just fell in love. Javi. I just was like,
Wow.
there's a whole way understanding how we become who we're meant to become, like all the things along the way, all the stages, all the moments, all the important encounters. Like I want to understand this. Like I want to, and I was like, I want to be a therapist. It was just like boom,
At 10 years old, you locked in.
locked in, and that's why in high school I was already volunteering, and I was like,
Mhm. You were, like, focused on that.
yeah. And so when I got to college at age 17, I was like, how do I get into graduate school? And by the time I was 21, I was a PhD fellow in a clinical psychology program.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then? And then what happened?
That,
PhD fellow at 21. Like, my mind is a
I,
little shook.
yeah. At this point, I also had spent a year in Israel, which was really transformative for me.
Also in school or
We went to
yeah.
seminary. I went to Neve Yerushalayim. I wanted to go to some that seemed to be more spiritually oriented. And I went for my sophomore year of college, which would have been my freshman year,
Freshman, yeah.
seminary year. And based on the fact that I had left the Chabad system, there was no Mayanot or there was no
Mhm.
alternative Chassidic environment. This is going back
Right.
almost 30 years now. So And that was sad. That was hard for me because I really, really always loved to learn Torah, but I also kind of was exploratory.
Yeah.
And I think the Neve at that time was not so Chabad friendly. And so it was another incubator of my belonging.
Yeah.
Okay, where do I belong, where I don't belong, where I can find myself and where I can land. And so it was a very important year for me.
Wow.
Really
Yeah.
important, yeah.
And then after Israel, did you go back to Stern
Yeah, I went back to Stern, did my junior and senior year in Stern. And when I graduated, went straight into graduate school
in New York?
in New York, in Queens, called St. John's University.
Okay.
And I finished, kind of fun for me to review my,
I know, right? Isn't it fun to like
okay, well,
you don't always have an opportunity to sit down and be like, "Wow, how did I get here?"
I mean, I'm happy to review it with you.
Yeah,
It feels sweet to
it's
know
fascinating.
that,
I
yeah.
love it. I love to hear it.
Yeah, so at that point, I had different relationships. Some were better than others. I'd experimented quite a bit at that point with different things, and I had a lot of friends who were like, we were partying a lot, and there
Mm,
were all kinds of, I was always very firm in my religious practice and my spirituality and my learning. And I definitely journeyed quite a bit in those years.
yeah,
And I had a relationship that was a pretty impactful relationship in my life's journey, in that, and it's the kind of thing that I think back and I'm like, what was I thinking?
yeah.
But I obviously wasn't thinking. Something else was working through me. And I thought I met the one. I thought I would be moving. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take a year off of graduate school, and I'm gonna leave the PhD
Mhm.
program. And I remember Mrs. Sarah Rosen. I've had so many people over the years who I've been welcomed in their home as a guest, that learned so much from them. And we host quite a bit. And I really feel all of their energies and their intelligences that have impacted me. And the Rosen family, Kingston Avenue, Crown Heights, one of those families, and Mrs. Sarah Rosen, who passed away a few years ago. And I felt really, after I left graduate school, I felt horrible. Felt-
Mhm.
it's like there was no Instagram or like all of this, like how to lose a guy or like what not to
Yeah,
do. Like there was,
yeah.
and I think, yeah, I didn't receive a certain kind of guidance that would have maybe had me really slow down and be like, is this what you actually really want? Or are you afraid? Or what's happening?
Mhm.
I had been talking to Mrs. Rosen, and she was a social worker. And she said to me, she's like, it's not just the unintegrated parts that left graduate school. It's not just the confused parts, or it's something else here also wanted to leave. And that was very important medicine for me. And just this, it's so true, right? We
Yeah.
make a quote unquote mistake, whatever that means in life, and then we buy into the narrative that we're broken or we screwed up, and then it's like that opening awareness, that higher das that says, well, there's something else at play
Yeah.
here. There's something
Yeah.
else and that was really important for me. And I think I allowed myself to explore my creativity. I took a photography class, and then took a filmmaking class. I realized there was something about the classic therapeutic dynamic that actually, and fast forward now 25 years, I work very deeply with people, and I'm sure we'll get to it, my trauma
Yes.
work and all that.
Yes.
So the impulse of working with people and has always obviously been very alive in me. But in that moment, there was something about the paradigm that just wasn't speaking to me. And I didn't have the
Words.
maturity or
Yeah.
the understanding to really express that. I was a 21-year-old young woman. I was getting all of these projections thrown at them. I was working in social services and families going through custody battles. And a lot of anger was
Yeah.
thrown at me, and I didn't have the Kaylee really
Yeah.
to hold it. And I think the work of becoming the kind of space that can really hold and really witness
Pain.
pain and grief and challenge. And that takes years, in many sense, to cultivate. It's not, and yeah, and so I feel like it was a veer off the path again, whatever that means, but it
But it
was
was really, like, part of it.
absolutely, but it was
Yeah.
absolutely part of it.
Yeah. It's fascinating because, like, this knowing that you got at 10 years old that was like, "Oh, that." Like, I wanna know how people are, who they are, why they are,
Hmm.
and then the journey, like, where you are now is really very aligned. Like, it wasn't like we talked about before, like, not a linear path, and I think what I know about you, what I see about you, what I hear about you, and as we're talking, it's like you have such a creative also spirit, this creative, artistic, like, that needed to be part of this
Mm-hmm.
and have your unique way that you then come back and do that work of why are you here, what you're doing, and witness people's pain in such a present and deep way, took that
Hmm.
other dimension that
Yeah.
was such a contribution to being able to do what you do today.
Yeah, that's a beautiful reflection. Thank you. I mean, that really opened up the portal of me leaning into myself as an artist. And I
Mhm.
worked in photography and filmmaking for 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this was a big part of your life.
Oh, yeah. I was probably one of the first female photographers in Crown Heights that had like event access. I was like on the men's side, I was photographing the bris.
Wow, you were like a photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how many hats somebody can wear and how many things, like, I always kind of sometimes it wasn't always coming from a positive place. I would, like, look at myself because I have a lot of passions and a lot of things that I wanna do, and sometimes it feels like you just can't stick to one thing and you're always doing, and I've come to understand that it's like I have a lot of connection to a lot of things,
Mhm.
and when I see it in somebody else, it just warms my heart. I'm like, oh, there's other people that like to do a lot of things and not just stick with one thing.
And holding all the parts and the
And there's always like a common thread between
yeah,
them, right?
exactly. Yeah, and that was really important for me, recognizing it's always been about the story. It's always been about the unfolding of consciousness. It's always been about the path of becoming. It's always been about transmitting some kind of frequency of something, right?
Mhm, mhm.
That lands in people in a particular way. And it's also always been about feeling the disappointment in the system,
Yeah.
whether it's the education system or the healing system or the how we learn
It
about
fails you and you're like, "How come?" And
and I can see that disappointment, but I can actually see like the evolution of it or the tikkun of it or um yeah, how we can evolve from that place. So
wow. So 10 years photography, filmmaking. What's it like to be a filmmaker? Like, I don't like that is a world that I do not know at all.
well, I worked in the nonprofit film arena for a very long time, meaning making videos for organizations in the front
Mhm.
for schools, for camps, for
Wow, okay.
so kind of making the fundraising videos,
Mhm.
interviews, distilling the stories, and I was trained as a video editor, which is like really grueling, detail oriented work. And so
Cannot imagine.
I worked with, Yankee Teitelbaum for a long time. I worked with, that's around the time that I met Yitzchak Muli. His cup is behind you. Yitzchak and I are
Yes,
old
yes.
friends. And I, yeah, I started just developing this craft of really listening and asking the right questions. And that was also very much born from the therapeutic work.
Right. Really seeing the story, really seeing the purpose and the
Yeah.
trajectory and
And how to, like the work that you do, how to create a kind of space where people can kind of land and they feel enough trust and
mhm.
you sense the next question. And there was this whole creative element. I mean, my father has been selling Oriental rugs, handmade rugs, for like, I don't know, 50, 60 years, 50 years.
No.
I've grown up saturated in beautiful things. He has an amazing eye. I've always found my creativity through accessories, through fashion.
Yes.
If you come to my home, it's Baruch Hashem beautiful. And when I was younger, especially because I was so fixated on psychology, I didn't have the space to actually blossom as an
Yes. To
artist,
tap into.
to
Yes.
own my artistry. And so here I was, I got to ask people questions and like get into their inner worlds, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
But also I was like, it's the shot, it's the image, it's the lighting. And I worked for 7 years with Beis Chana. I grew up going to Rabbi Friedman's classes. I mean, Beis Chana was a really big part of my
That's a the St. Paul Minneapolis connection. Yeah.
And then for 7 years, I went to all the retreats, and Hindalea was a very special person in my life. And so I got to speak to, I don't know, over 100 women for sure in the span of those 7 years, collecting their stories and their stories of transformation. And around the time, I mean, at this point, I was already married. And so I was, 24, 25, around there, 26. And still working in photography and video. My son was 3. My daughter was 1. I met somebody who's become a dear friend, Tali Miller, and she came to me and she said, "I have 100 hours of video of when I was a student at NYU Film School, and I started a documentary on Shomer Negia.
Wow.
Would you cut this for me?" And I tracked the story of how she met her then husband, Matisyahu, and they navigated a relationship not touching. And I was like, wow, let's also add religious kids who do touch. And let's talk about how we teach sexuality or don't teach sexuality. Let's talk about, I was surrounded in my late 20s, early 20s, late teens, early 20s with like from kids who were navigating all these questions around
Yeah.
sexuality and intimacy through so much shame
Yes.
and so much confusion and so much um, fear. And I wanted to highlight those stories. And we worked on that documentary for 3 years.
Wow.
And my dream at that point was I'm going to change the way we teach and learn about sex in the frum world. And it's still something I'm quite passionate about. At that point, it was like I knew it from a different place, and I just felt
Yeah.
like there's something has to shift. And you'll slow me down at any point that you want because I'm
No, I'm
like
I'm
train,
I'm like enraptured.
on the train of my life story. So,
Yeah.
like, if there's any moment that,
No, 100%. I'm on it.
yeah, and so that was 3 years, and during that time, my son, who's now almost 20, was at Lubavitch Yeshiva in Crown Heights.
Did the documentary ever come out?
No,
Because that's what I'm hearing, like, you worked on it and then
yeah,
it just
they moved to California. We started Lamplighters together. They were one of the 4 founding families, and then they ended up
wow.
moving to California, and then they got divorced, and it just didn't feel appropriate to release that.
Release that, yeah.
Yeah.
How did it feel to have, like, 3 years of your work not be seen by other people? I'm sure it was impactful as part of your journey, but how did you process this huge thing that you were working on and it
Mm,
not be
yeah, it was hard. It was really, really,
yeah,
yeah.
can only imagine.
I think I got so swept up in Lamplighters,
Yeah,
and they got divorced. Like it didn't feel like there was any negotiation room.
right, it just didn't feel right.
It didn't feel right. And once I was in my Lamplighters era, I was so fully in that work. Like I was so in that work that I was like, oh, you okay? Like that,
Mhm,
okay.
mhm.
And I think, yeah, this is like you talk to any artist, it's like is the art in the creative process. Like if
Right.
nobody ever would read a poem that you wrote or see a painting that you created or,
It
yes,
still has the value that it has.
so the value, and every artist wants their work to be in conversation. Like that's also what keeps the art alive is that people are watching and looking.
Talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure it would have been so fantastic, and I know it's something that we both, carry like feeling
Yeah.
around. And there were moments where we got to show cuts of it, and it was a really interesting experience. I was
Yeah.
like the sidekick of the wife of like the most famous Jew at the moment,
Yes.
and
Yes. That must have been very fascinating.
that was very fascinating. And I love Tali. She's a beautiful, amazing person. And I was really, yeah, we were like, our kids were very close friends, and
Yeah.
we vacationed together and all kinds of things. So,
W
yeah.
So, what was the motivation for Lamplighters? First of all, how would you describe Lamplighters, and how did you end up now coming from the art creative space, and now you're kind of in education?
Yeah. So I've always been in education.
Yeah.
In some way or another, I've been a teacher.
Yeah.
Probably my Bas Mitzvah speech was a piece of Torah that was like a total chiddush about Purim and Pirkei Avos, and like I had an original thought. It was like,
Oh my gosh.
and I've always loved public speaking. I've always been good at public speaking. So I gave classes when I was in high school, like Pirkei Avos Shurim, that the women in the community would come to.
Mhm. So this was a core piece of you.
This is a core piece of me. So like even now, like and obviously like I'm in so much evolution around my teaching now, but this is me.
Mhm.
And in my early 20s, around the time that I left graduate school, I got involved with an organization called YAM that was around in Crown Heights then, and a dear friend of mine who was involved with that, or Chai Tone. And then I got connected to this group of young women who were all friends from Base Rishko, and I'm smiling because like I love them so much, and now they're like, obviously at the time they were just a few years younger than me, and so and they were girls who like Base Rishko girls who like at the time of high school were seen as maybe rebellious or not interested or not good students, but
Yeah.
as like in their early 20s really wanted to learn Chassidus. And so every Thursday night, the Cohen House on Brooklyn Avenue, I was invited to give them a class for about a year. And I remember even some of the lessons that I gave. There was like this real, it's like the early blueprint of how I teach right now, which is
Yeah.
being in like very deeply in a Hasidic concept and feeling how that concept relates, embodies, mirrors a very important part of self, and finding an expression of that through. I mean, I think when I started off, I was more into the more quote unquote creative, like a
Mhm.
sort of like creative hook. We
Yeah.
used film, or we use like I'm not like that as much anymore. But there was this sense of like finding myself in the stream,
Yeah.
finding how my life, and Torah and Chassidus and the mystical depths is actually like
Yeah.
one thing, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, so I and then even the film, thinking and feeling about how we learn about sexuality and intimacy, like had me thinking and feeling about how are
Education.
how are our schools. So by the time, and then I had my own child. I
Then your child, and then comes your
had my
children,
own child, and
our biggest teachers.
as teachers, we were at a Yuteskis Farbrengen last night, and my son came. I said to my husband, I was like, he's my only son. I have four daughters after him. Like, oh, like the love of a mom of their sons. There's something about the mama son,
Mhm.
this.
My husband is such a mama's boy, and so I see it. My mother-in-law passed away many, many years ago, but
Mhm.
he's the quintessential mama's boy, and it's really special. I really admire that.
My husband is also the mama's boy. My mother-in-law also passed away many years ago. And I said to him at that moment, I was like, I know that your mother loves you like that too. Like, she
Yeah,
was like, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so my son, at that point also, I had met so many kids who were quote unquote off the derech, or who were like these spectacular, creative, deep, huge souls who did not find their way through the Lubavitch system. And
Yeah.
I had that lived with me. Like, how is it that these bright,
How is this happening?
how's it
Yeah.
happening? How are these like amazing kids that you could tell the Lubavitchers from like a mile
Yeah.
away? Like, how is it that they didn't find their home in this system? And so, all of this kind of came through when my son was 3 years old at Lubavitch Yeshiva, and an old friend of mine from way back started an after school program. And I sent Uriah, my son, there. And there was just this moment of like, why can't it look like this? Why can't it be like this? Why not?
Mhm. Mhm.
Why not? And I remember calling my husband up and I was saying, I want to start a school. And to his credit, he was like, okay. He just, I don't even quite understand. It was like,
You're just gonna say, "Okay," like,
yeah,
just total support?
I mean, look, there was lots of ups and downs over the 10 years.
100%.
I was so consumed with my work, and he's always, and to this day, like such a supportive partner who really sees me. But yeah, he was like, okay. And yeah, I felt the spirit of Lamplighters from that moment. Like, Lamplighters had and has very particular energetic blueprint. And maybe that sounds funny
Yeah.
talking about a school, but it was,
It doesn't sound funny to me.
yeah, it was alive. It was a very alive entity, and it came through very, very powerful ways. And we were originally four families and an educator who came together, and like Alpi Teva, first of all, starting a school is so challenging. People reach out to me to this day. Can I pick your brain?
Yeah.
And it's like, I wish that I could distill 10 years into a few voice notes.
Right.
You're talking about a system, a communal system, education system, a parenting system, a developmental system, a financial system, a political system, a spiritual system. Every system,
The fact that there's any schools at all.
it,
Literally.
and you add that it's a religious school, it's a Lubavitch school that wants to try something different
Different.
within Crown Heights.
Mhm.
You would say, like, if we were to take our school and put it in Miami or in Los Angeles, it would have been a very different experience within
Yeah.
Crown Heights. So it was such a complex ecosystem that was also so beautiful.
Mhm.
And I think from the beginning, there was just something in me that was almost compulsive. I have like so many early memories of just like points where it would have made sense to just
Mhm.
not open or to close.
Yeah.
And I I
It
always,
was such a passion.
I don't know if it was I think no, I don't even think it's
No?
passion. It's more than that. It was just this like, I mean, this sounds kind of cheesy, but it was like being in very deep relationship with destiny. That's the words that are,
Like a calling.
yeah, a very, very,
Yeah.
very deep calling.
So you have this family, you get together, you're like, "Okay, there's a need for a system within the system, but that also is open to exploring other ways of educating, maybe tapping into the children who are falling through the cracks." And I like to say nowadays, it's like, what child is fitting
Right,
in this system? Like,
right.
I almost feel like it's not no one's it's just to me, there's a lot. And listen, I have my own perspective, and I live in Montana, and I have 5 children through adoption, and they're in public school, and so I have a lot of. I'm approaching things from a very different perspective, and I've never really lived in insular community. I grew up in Texas. I went to like the local day school that was very secular.
Mm.
And I live in Montana, so I don't really have like enough insight about how it works in the system. But I would love to hear about your experience as a mom navigating life with children that aren't fitting in the system.
Yeah.
Because I experienced that. And I think we have a connection around that.
Yeah.
And I think many people experience that. It's not, I think, like this unusual out of the box thing anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would love to explore that. Like, what was that for you?
Well, this is going back 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
where the only paradigm for alternative education in Crown Heights was Darche Menachem, which was
Yeah.
very clearly a school, which helped us quite a bit when we launched. Very clearly a school for kids who seem to not make it in the system. And it's a very sensitive thing because
I know.
ultimately we did not want to be a school for kids who didn't fit in. We felt like our model of education was not a b'diavad. It was a lechatchila.
Yes. Like that is such an important point.
Yeah, like every child needs the capacity to move around the room, to make their own choices, to experience mistakes, to have the space to ask questions, to touch things,
Mm-hmm.
sensory experience in their learning, to feel, there's so many aspects of individualized education that we use as a band-aid, but really like
It should be, like you said,
all kids need.
first.
So and the first meeting that we had, we sat together and we're like, what do we want for our kids? And what we wanted, like we came up with the word Lamplighters, which we all know, like this Chassidic metaphor of being a
Such an embodied name. Like,
and being and man, like getting to work with metaphors of light and lamplighter
yeah,
for 10 years was creative, like so much
gold mine.
fun, gold mine, exactly. What we did was just amazing. But like what emerged in that Fabrangan was we want our children to be lamplighters. And to be lamplighters means that you are a full person, and that you're an
Yeah,
individual, and that you have connection with yourself through multiple ways of being, and that you are inspired, and that you
yeah.
give to others, and all of these things. So now what draws people to alternative programs?
Mm-hmm.
Usually when something is not working.
Working. Something's not working. You have to all of a sudden take a closer look.
And or there's something in me, in my childhood, that's unintegrated that I don't want my kid to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had lots of parents that were like, I grew up in the system. I don't want my kid to go through what I went through.
Feel a certain way or
But like, I really, really want all the good stuff of Alitera.
Mhm. We want our cake and to eat it too.
We want everything, right? So
Always.
always. And so that was also part of it, was over the years really also touching those parts in me of, like you were saying about our kids not fitting in. I don't know if my son would have fit in or not in yeshiva. I assumed that he wouldn't fit into the box. And a lot of that assumption is my stuff that I was projecting onto him.
Mhm.
Really, I had a hard time fitting in, and I had belonging,
Yeah.
and I didn't find myself fully in the box of Chabad community. And I was so afraid that my son would get tarnished through the system. And so I put my everything into building a world that would protect and nurture and allow his genius. And you know what? He didn't have a perfect experience, even in this seeming
Yeah.
utopia that I created for him. And that's hard,
Yeah.
That's
Isn't that such a thing to confront?
yes.
When we also realize like so much of the things that we project onto our children and all in very good intention. And sometimes recognizing, well, that's my stuff. It's not your stuff. And coming to terms with where we messed up, right? What we said before, like, is it really a mess up? Whatever, like where we could have, or where we did the best. I always say, like, most parents are doing the best they can with the information they have.
Mhm.
And we grow and we learn. And I'm in a stage of my life right now where my kids are getting big. And, my Shoshana's 21, Chaya's 16 and 15, and my son's having a bar mitzvah this year. And all of a sudden, they're developed humans, and they have opinions of how you did and what you did and where you went wrong and what you should have done.
Yep.
And I find that it is truly humbling and so important to learn how to make space for that and hear them and not get defensive, which is I'm like, I can get very defensive very quickly.
Mm.
And I have worked so hard when my kids come and tell me, like, or the experience with Shoshana and going to a therapeutic program and her years later coming back to tell me some of the really bad things that happened to her there, or that she really didn't appreciate having to go and all those things, and just holding the space for that while every part of you wants to like scream and be like, but I did this for you. Like I didn't know what else to do. And both of those things are true.
Yep.
Both of those things are true and they coexist, but just being that container and being like, yeah, I hear you. Like that was your experience. I hold space for that.
Yeah.
And it's brutal. I find it to be hard.
It is hard. It is hard. And I think you're exactly right. It's, can I stay connected to my ground? Can I just listen, not personalize? And so the Lamplighters is really big for my whole family. You know, for
Mhm.
years, my kids all went to my school. They also
Yeah.
were waiting around after school when I was working. I carried the stress home. I carried the joy home.
Mhm.
I witnessed the slow, demise, and they were with me as I closed that chapter, which was
Yeah.
a really colossal portal of grief. And my kids also are getting older, and I don't say this to pacify myself, but just kind of an awareness of how life is. I know that as they get older, they'll probably share with me more and more ways in which this chapter of their life was hard for them,
Yeah.
and also beautiful for them.
But also beautiful. 100%.
And there's, like, I just know it. Like, they were essential parts of a gorgeous movement that continues to ripple, and they were raised with a mom who's invested in a really particular way that I think is also
Huge gift. Comes with other things, but
huge. Actually, we had
huge gift.
um, Thanksgiving this year. We went to our place upstate, and we were, sharing gratitude. I'd like force them, but they obliged. And
We do that every night at dinner. We go around the table and we have to say what we're grateful for. I instituted it when Chaya was very young, and I saw this like little tendency of hers to be negative, and and which is nothing wrong with, but I just wanted to give language to like we can focus on all the things that went wrong, and we can focus on all the bad stuff, but for 2 seconds of the day, we're going to come together as a family. And we're each going to share something that went right in our day that was grateful. And then, of course, you have it develops as like the thorn, the rose, and the bud, the rose, the thorn. Do you know that?
no, I don't. I'm still amazed that you guys sit around the table every night.
Oh, we have dinner, family dinner every night. I grew up that way, and it's so sacred
Wow.
because I grew up on shlichus, and my parents were not only my parents; they were the community's parents. And so I think one of the things that my parents did so right and instilled in us not a resentment for how we grew up was that we had dinner together every night, no matter what. And if there's always extenuating circumstances, as something happens and my father wasn't able to come home for dinner. But as a rule, every night we sat together at dinner, and we do that as well. So the rose, bud, the thorn is like, okay, the rose is what you're grateful for. The bud is something you're looking forward to. And the thorn is like, okay, what went wrong in your day? Like what kind of was a thorn on your side? So there's different variations. My Chanalea, who's 8 now, she'll always, we'll do what we're grateful for, right? And then she'll start, well, the bad thing, she'll always start with the bad thing was, and then she'll move on.
That's excited. We're sharing gratitude, and I'm so inspired by your every night dinner. And my gratitude to my children was because also now with my work in Ohmek, like they have to share me in
Hmm.
and my gratitude they were shedding tears. It was so beautiful. It's like, thank you for bearing with me, essentially.
Yeah.
Thank you for seeing that my work in this world necessitates this kind of stuff, and that you
Yeah.
guys, and
Kind of
it's
purpose.
not easy for you, and I know that you've sacrificed, and I really appreciate that you've, yeah, been there with me through it, and it was beautiful to feel that.
That's really beautiful, and I really relate to that knowing and that wrestling with what you feel deeply, what your purpose is and what you're meant to do in this world, and the sacrifices that you make around that and your family makes around that, but, like, the knowing of, "Okay, I feel called to being in a s creating a school, creating a Ohmek," which we're gonna just talk about, and it's not just me being home or me being, solely your parent. I feel like it's a little bit of a reckoning of, like, navigating how that feels.
Hmm.
Did you ever feel, like, guilt or around that or wrestling with balancing that?
Yeah, I felt a lot of guilt. I felt it as a mom. I felt it as
Mhm.
a wife. I felt like, yeah,
I think it's a very common story mothers experience.
yeah, yeah. And there wasn't a moment of like, maybe I should. I felt very clear that this was my work.
Mhm. It wasn't like, "I shouldn't be doing this."
Right. It was more of like, wow, there's a cost, and
Yeah.
I'm burnt out, and I'm tired. And by the time,
Yeah.
2018 rolled around, and my last child, my youngest child, and when Abaye was born, I had to like fundraise for payroll when she was like a few hours old, and
Ooh. Yeah.
2018 really began, like, I think, like the slow decline. So at that point, I definitely was like fantasizing about what it would be so amazing if I could. I started this thing. I'm part of an amazing team of educators and parents and thought leaders and funders, and can I just find like a graceful exit? Like I
Yeah.
don't want to be school director for the rest of my life, and I didn't know how to find my way out.
Mhm.
Um,
Maybe it's kind of like what we discussed full circle in the beginning, right? It was very hard to do on your own. So there were some outside circumstances
yeah, I mean, I
that
still, I wish that that could have happened without the school closing.
Yeah.
Feel
Yeah.
I definitely don't feel like the school was a carbon for me in my evolution. I think we all of us, have found ways to stay active
Yeah.
and giving, even after the school closed. But yeah, there was some sort of like Hashem knew that I
Mhm.
was not stepping out of this role easily.
Yeah.
and
Yes.
um and yeah, those last two years were quite traumatic in many ways.
Yeah. I can only imagine. And that was the stepping stone and the evolution of, okay, like, how are you showing up now? Like, what is your dreams and goals next and currently? And I really want to dive into that and hear about current Yocheved and your passions and the things that you're doing. And I really want to get to talking about this living life on the edge and straddling many different worlds. I really want to talk about
Okay.
that.
Ah, where shall I start? I mean, the straddling different worlds has been like forever.
It's your story.
Yeah.
I almost feel like you were created to live life on the edge.
Mhm, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? Like, just, like 1 foot over.
Um,
Balancing.
my dear friend, Dina Schusterman, from Atlanta. She,
Oh, I love Dina. She's
yeah.
yeah, a friend of mine as well.
And she forwarded me this reel. She's like, Yocheved, this is you to the T. And it's a reel of this like woman who's like really, really woo woo and like, kind of holding space, gonna hold space
Yeah.
and like about to get on the train, and her friend is like, are you gonna be safe? And she's like, of course, I have this like crystal rock with me and like, but I also have this like 22 gun, and
Yes.
I'm like, why do you?
Why did you think of me?
Because Yocheved, you're exactly that balance, like of like that sort of spiritual whatever, that stream,
Mhm.
like so real and able to like
Practical.
practical in that particular way. That, and I think what I got from that is not only about those two sides, but some kind of balance
Mhm.
of those two, or integration of the two. And though I would never carry a gun. Yeah, it's
Idea.
yeah. Them. I feel like we're talking about Lamplighters. How it is that we started. We were a bunch of kids of Bali Tshuva.
Yeah.
I feel like there was something really important about that. It's like I'm in the
Mhm.
world, but I'm not in this world.
Mm.
I belong. I'm of here, but I'm not of here.
Yes.
And being able to really hold that, like all the ways in which I'm of here, and here can be fill in the blank.
Mhm.
All the ways in which I am of here, but I'm also not of here, and that I hold that there isn't bitterness at this point in my life. There isn't angst. There isn't so much. Yeah, there are moments sometimes where it flares up,
Yeah.
but overall, there's a sense of like yes. And even when I was in like really pushing the boundaries and very aware of myself in the Lubavitch community in Crown Heights, as a head of a school, even when I was like really pushing those boundaries, like I feel so much love and care for this community. I love. I it's mine. I belong to
Mhm.
it. It's not even all the places that I want to change and I want to revolutionize, and they don't come from this place of anger and bitterness.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, whatever that is, that particular combination
Yeah.
that lands in people as authentic, because it feels that it is authentic, allows me to be like, I'm here, I'm in it, I'm also not really in it, and also like here's where we can push. I Someone gave me such a beautiful reflection, because I've been invited now a number of times to open the chuppah space for a couple and stand on the chuppah and invite an intention or blessings, which ruffles feathers in Chabad, and I've had to navigate that with different couples in different ways.
Why do you think it ruffles feathers?
Well,
I wanna get there. I wanna go there. I know.
there's like, because Chabad won't do things that look like conservative or Reform Judaism, so a woman getting up there in some sort of rabbinic spiritual leadership function rings alarms. But also, I think it's threatening. I think that there's something threatening about it.
But it's so interesting because as a Chabad shlicha, we are front and center all the time. Like, like, I don't know, we speak in front of men and women. I guess it's in like a
Oh,
yeah,
we're
it's a very
It's
interesting thing.
it's very interesting. I led a research project for 2 years on gender equality and leadership in Orthodox community. I spoke to women
Mhm,
from the right of Orthodoxy to the
mhm.
left. Chabad women, we are different
Yeah,
because we've had many, many opportunities for leadership,
yeah,
and it's just it's a different animal. You're
mhm,
right, especially on shluchos,
mhm.
but also ritual is different
Yeah,
than
it's a very different space.
ritual. And now, as part of Ohmek, I hold minyanim, and there's a mechitza, and there's obviously it's an Orthodox minyan, but I'm the one who's sharing the Dvar Torah, I'm the one who's leading meditations, I'm the one who's interjecting, I'm holding de facto the role of rabbi, and in a ritual space, and it's edgy.
It's edgy.
It's edgy, and it's not. And this feedback that I got after I held this chuppah that was really important to me. This person, I mean, people are generally very, very moved, including men. It's not just the woman. There's something about seeing embodied female spiritual leadership that is moving. I feel like there's a certain yearning that the collective has for it, especially when there's not about, I have nothing to prove. I have nothing to prove.
Mhm.
And I'm very,
Yeah.
very happy in my role as an Orthodox Jewish woman. And the feedback that I got was this person said, it's like, it felt so beautiful to see you up there and not just because you're a woman. I'm like, yeah,
Wasn't to be a
you're
feminist.
not making it, it's not
Yeah.
about me. Yeah, we can talk about gender dynamics and the
Yeah.
patriarchy and all the ways, and we can talk about that. And I have
Yeah.
lots of opinions about that. And that's not where this is coming from. It's not like a woman can do it too. It's like,
Mm.
I feel the sacred opportunity of stepping in to this stream, to this channel, this opportunity, especially with couples that I have a connection with.
Mm.
I feel something really healing that emerges in a prayer space where there's an embodied feminine voice.
So, for curiosity's sake, so you mentioned that I forget the exact sentence you said, but something like Chabad or Orthodoxy doesn't want to see anything that like resembles reform and conservative,
This is very, this is
right?
the sense of Chabad, yes.
So, to explain the differentiation, you're not the rabbi, but you're leading a service.
Right.
What differentiates
Yeah.
the two?
You have Yeshivat Maharat. You have places that are Orthodox that are ordaining women now for quite a few years.
That's not the same thing as a yoetzet, right?
No. Yoetzet is more focused on answering halachic questions related to nida
Yeah.
and women's reproductive cycles, things like that. What's the difference? Like, for example, like halachically, a woman can't be an aide. Halachically, a woman can't. There are ways maybe that some people might loopholes, but by and large, in Orthodoxy, a woman can't be Masaber Kedushin. She can't make those first two brachos.
Right.
So, there's like a kind of an awareness of like, what is the role that I can embody within the realms of sneas and within the realms of, and look, and some people might say it's not sneas to get up there under a chuppah and speak. It's not sneas to,
There's a lot of people that think what Shluchim do and Chabad in general are edgy on tznius in general.
exactly. So I feel like I'm willing to take a hit on this one. I'm willing to kind of play with the edges on this because it feels important to me, and I think there's actually ultimately something very restorative. What's kept me in Crown Heights for 25, 26 years? There's something here for me. There's a particular function in that place of being on the edge. I think it creates permission for people to be in deeper contact with their spiritual selves. Like I can be me and be like deeply spiritual, deeply invested in my healing work, deeply care about ritual practice. I don't have to fit into that neat box either. I don't have to that's not a binary for me either. Because so many of us don't feel like that very traditional model holds all of us. And when I have community events that I know we kind of jumped over the story of how Ohmek came to be, but if you look at it right now, and
Well, we can go there.
we can go there, but
Yeah.
I mean, I love the combination of souls that are attracted to Ohmek.
I was actually going to ask you, I'm like, from the outside, because I don't know so well the Ohmek community, but from the outside, it feels like there's like the souls that you draw are highly spiritual and sensitive and maybe don't align with the traditional Chabad framework.
Maybe yes, and although we also get people who might come to
Yeah.
770, kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I'm fascinated because I think what you're doing can be very easily misunderstood and it can be scary to people and push on uncomfortability. And that's fine. Like, that's why there's so many different ways that you can connect. It's probably not for a lot of people, but I would love to for you to be able to express, how the mainstream, if you're like a mainstream, nobody ever fits inside a box, but you are generally fine in the system, also joining what you have to offer, and the more out of the box, spiritual, artistic, less rigid in the system, feel at home. How do you explain that?
Hmm. Well, so many layers to it. My husband and I have been hosting our whole entire marriage. And when I had
Yes.
Lamplighters, I would have Friday nights of 35 people.
Yeah. By the way, I know you're such a loving home base for so many people. I can't even tell you how many people I interact with and come across that you are just the mother, right? Like you're like that place they feel safe in the home and the just open, which is such a amazing thing.
Yeah, so thank you. I mean, I lost count how many people ended up at my Shabbos table. It was their first time in Crown Heights, and they ended up at my Shabbos table. And we
Yeah.
were like big part of Chevra, and we
Mhm.
used to write for Chavria, and so there was always we led birthright trips. So there was always a revolving door in my house of just different Jews.
Mhm.
Of course, the Lamplighters community was such a rich, diverse community, and we were very close as a staff.
Yeah.
So just first of all, just like most of the Ohmek events happen in my home.
Mhm.
So there's just something about there's a quality in the home that different people come to, and that my husband and I, Yessi and I, are like really beautiful hosts. Like we're good at it.
Mhm.
So there's just like that quality.
Yeah.
Come into a home and it's beautiful and there's good food and there's good people and like we're vibing and all of that. And I think, after Lamplighters, I really had like my own, dark night of the soul. I really, and as you know, one of my children had a very profound mental health crisis, like
Yeah.
exactly at that time, like literally exactly at that time.
Wow.
And at that point, I was already in my own therapy. I was studying Jewish meditation for a number of years. I was getting back into inner work and I had done a number of coaching paradigms. But I really tumbled into this like deep, dark space of who am I? What's my life? What's it all for? Why is my child suffering like this? Did I do something? Is it my fault?
Yeah.
She was 12 at the time. All of this stuff, when I reached out to you, all of that.
Mhm.
And really getting initiated into a path of grief. Grief really initiated me into a different expression of my soul.
Yeah.
And
Usually does.
usually does, right? And meeting different teachers and one of my primary teachers now, Thomas Huebl, and for the past 4 years, really, really, really into deep, deep trauma work that brings together mystical language, a psychological language, and a somatic language. And my work and part of the ethos of Ohmek is a place to be. My work really is in the intersection of trauma restoration and
Mhm.
practice.
Okay, so you do have like I always felt this, but I would never wanted to like box you into that. But it's very you have this safe space to like this trauma related
Yes,
experience.
I see clients.
Yes. Okay.
This is part of my trips to Poland and to Israel. It's like very deep collective trauma restoration work, which I'm in practice of. I've been trained in, and I'm saying this because I think you're saying like, how is it that different people come to you? What are they coming for? How are you attracting? It's a mix of all these things, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
also it's like, oh, you're teaching like really deep Chassidus, but through this lens of like really deep spiritual practice and the inner language of healing work from a very like as like a practitioner, as an embodied practitioner.
Mhm.
There is something, and I think that also I'm a woman who has a developed masculine energy. So there's all, and my husband is a masculine with a very beautiful feminine, developed feminine energy. I think it feels safe for people to come in and they're being met on so many levels: deep spirituality, meditation, practice, healing, good people, good vibes, good food, and it's a very strong vision. And all of this is coming together in some way that feels like people are finding themselves there.
Yeah. So what do you think is actually let me back up. Do you feel like you're misunderstood?
No,
No.
I don't. At this point, I know. It feels like
You know like what you're giving to the
it
world.
feels like an old story for me. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
people who know me, look, I have Baruch Hashem 350 women on my learning WhatsApp group. I have close to 1,000 people on my Ohmek WhatsApp. I've been sharing Torah online for years now. People know me in different ways, and it's like
Mhm.
I no, I don't
Yeah.
feel. And if somebody doesn't understand or doesn't get, or is like, "What's Yocheved?" It's like, okay,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
really feel. Yeah, I really don't feel a need to help people understand me in that way.
I love that. Now that comes from a deep security and a deep knowing of what and who you are.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that I don't have millions of places to grow and learn, and I really
Of course.
value.
We wouldn't be in this world if we weren't still needing to grow.
I have beautiful people in my life who, are sounding boards and reflectors, and in certain ways, my husband is a huge support, but he's a bit more conservative than I am, from wise in certain ways, not in some ways I am.
Mhm.
And it's like, so when the wedding thing came up, I was like, maybe I can be Mashadi Jewish. She's like, Yocheved.
Yeah.
It's like,
Hold your horses.
fine. So it's like, yeah, there are these different, and look, and like you said, my kids keep me honest. I have 5 kids, each one on a very different path religiously. I have from the Bisrifka to,
Mhm.
and my kids will sometimes be like, Mommy, they'll say, I'm confused. We're confused.
Yeah. There is this like a little bit of an element of confusion, I think, because you're coming from this like deep Chassidus perspective and then challenging some of the norms that we're all used to. And that could be confusing.
Yeah. And so I sit with that. I sit with that very seriously because I know what it's like to have been a confused kid. I'm
Mhm.
confused. My parents
Mm.
are Chabad, we're not Chabad.
Yeah.
My mother doesn't cover her hair. My father doesn't have a beard. And I feel for them. I have a lot of empathy. It's not something I can solve for them,
Yeah.
but to just say to them, I'm so committed to my Judaism, and I love what I do, and I really believe that each one of us finds their own way, and I want you to find your own way. Like, that's all I can say.
Yeah. Well, the permission as a parent to let our children find their own way is sometimes easier said than done. We're always trying to have some sort of control.
Sure.
But it's a really beautiful I've come to that experience myself over and over again, facing the truth that actually not only is it like you were saying b'diavad lechatchila, like not only is it a b'diavad, like it's a lechatchila, like intentionally we should be giving our children obviously with us, like we want to provide for them a safe and stable environment. We get to live the way that we live and we get to lead by example of how we want to live our lives. And at the same time, open up that space and understand and realize that maybe your kids aren't going to do it the same way that you are doing it. And whatever that brings up for you and wrestling with that, I find that I'm kind of in that season very much, especially when you hit like the teenage years and the young adult years, like how much you don't have the control anyway. So what happens if you create the space
Yeah.
that allows them to feel safe in the exploration?
Yeah. And space is so important. Uh, I'm actually researching the mystical properties of space right now.
Mm.
PhD program after 25 years,
Okay.
but this time in transpersonal research, the research of states of consciousness, soul, spirituality,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the opportunity emerged from the trauma studies that have been in the past 4 years, and so really beautiful kind of Hashem saying, okay, you said full circle moment, like full circle,
Yeah.
here I am finding myself, yeah, and space is such an essential ingredient. I mean, think about how Hashem created the world, right? Going back to that paradigm, the contraction that creates the space. It allows the emergence of choice. And so if we don't give our kids space, there's no room for choice. And it's not
Yeah.
easy. And
It's
likely
really hard.
we weren't likely given all the space that we needed, and it can be really hard, and then there's disappointment. And I definitely have grappled with this quite a bit. And, like I said, I have 5 amazing, beautiful, Baruch Hashem, really beautiful children, and each one is such an individual.
Yeah.
Um, and I've always felt like I would be more disappointed if I felt like they lived a life that was bland or lacked purpose or fire than anything else. Like, just like find something. Like, it's like this is like the Rebbe, like the sense of like just be committed to making the world a better place. Like, just
Mhm.
see like that you have so much power in this world. Have a mission. Have a
Yes,
what's your mission?
I really align with that. We all are put here to do something that nobody else can do.
Hmm.
Like, there's no other Yocheved, there's no other Chavie. We're all really just being in this world and trying to tap into what we feel in our soul is how we're supposed to show up in the world, how we're supposed to impact the world. And no two of our purposes or our missions are the same. Like, Hashem needs all of us.
Yep.
He needs us.
Yeah.
He needs us to like do the work. And it's so beautiful when you can look at the world in that way.
Mm.
And when you see people doing different things that maybe are alarming to you or are uncomfortable to you, but then being able to take a breath and be like, that's something that's needed in the world by this particular person.
Yeah.
And I think that it could just help people take a nice big deep breath. And
Absolutely.
then you get to worry about your own. Like, how are you? I think people get so caught up in how other people are doing their life. Oftentimes, maybe it's a distraction of how maybe not knowing how they're supposed to do their life or confusion in what's going on in their life. And I don't know, my biggest work, and I think, I mean, it's probably all of our biggest works, but the thing that I focus on a lot is me and how I'm showing up
Hmm.
and how I want to show up. And how do I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's like, how do you really tap into your purpose? Let's say you even have an idea of what your purpose is and you're there, but it's like, well, how do you really get to the crux of it and maximize? Like, how do you maximize your potential? Not in a hustle kind of way, but in like using all of your gifts that were given to you by Hashem and all your talents and all your abilities and like funneling it into the right place.
Yeah, such a powerful question. Well, patience is so important. Patience is so important. That was one of the major things that shifts that I made between Lamplighters and Ohmek. Lamplighters, I didn't have any patience,
Mhm.
and
I struggle with patience a lot.
yeah, yeah. So this is this sense of everything. I call it the rhythm of the unfolding. Everything has its own rhythm of unfolding, and I can stay motivated and curious and connected and invested and trust the rhythm of the unfolding. Like, really invite Emunah, really invite faith that
Yeah.
there is a bigger plan. And I don't, it's like we were saying before, the linear, I don't see all the pieces that are
Yeah.
working in support of my unfolding
Yeah.
and the perfection of my unfolding. Right. And like, I would never, ever, ever, ever wish like what happened to my daughter on anybody else, on any other
Yeah.
parent. And yet, like, what came through
Yes. Oh my god, can I relate to that?
for my
Yeah.
family, for me as a parent, for her as a remarkable young woman, right? Like, and so I, like Hashem, I bow, I trust. And can I really deeply listen to life? Like you're saying, how do I maximize my purpose? Like, how do I listen more deeply? Like, I feel like that's the invitation.
And listening more deeply, that it might sound cliche, but that is the slowing down, that is the
That's
meditations.
the slowing down. That's the meditation. That's the spaciousness. That's the what's here. Can I be with what's here? There's grief here, we're with grief. There's pain, we're with pain. There's disappointment, we're with disappointment. There's elation. And the permission to be with what's here. I've seen it again and again in my teachings and client work and my own work is so radical. And we need so many reminders to just what's here, and being called into deeper intimacy with what's here
It's so hard.
is so hard, especially in the beginning about like I can think my feelings, but feel it's so hard.
Yeah, and there's so many distractions.
But then we're with that, we're with the it's so hard.
Mhm.
That's what's here. And if I can be with that, like it's so hard. And feeling that deeper intimacy with self, I feel is what brings us into more contact with our purpose. Because it's
Yes.
here. It's inside of me. And my life is my purpose. It's not something else.
Right. Yeah. There's just the fact that you exist is important.
And everything that's in my life right now is an embodiment of my purpose. I think sometimes I get more clarity. We get more clarity. Things start to connect, and there's synchronicities, and there's allies, and there's ancestors, and there's articles, and there's things that are coming up that are in support of that. But also, we are inviting the universe to support us because we're saying everything that we see is part of the unfolding of me. It's all connected.
You mentioned earlier about how we're all interconnected as souls, as we're just like one thing, you know? It's so interesting. I teach a Tanya class to my community every Sunday morning, and I'm on chapter 42, I think. Second time around. The first time around, we did like the bold, like topics, kind of bird's eye view, like brief. Not, it wasn't brief, but it was more general.
Mhm.
And then this time, my community, because they're the best, they were like, "Okay, let's do it again, but, like, inside." You know, like, we're not skipping anything. We're, like, doing it, like, each and everything. So, it's been going on for years, and we're almost done round 2. It'll take us another while because it takes us, like, 10 weeks to do a chapter sometimes, you know? But I was just literally we were discussing, and part of the Tanya that came up was, like, when you interact with godliness, when you do a mitzvah, when you, do something that Hashem wants you to do, there's a meditation that you can prepare yourself. And and the Alter Rebbe says himself, like, okay, this is a little elusive and it's a little bit hard, but you can think it, you can get there. Is that when you're doing a mitzvah, you're not only elevating your own soul, you're not only impacting yourself, which is a very general concept, but he says it so profoundly. It's like when you do something, you're actually impacting the source of all the souls. And it's like such an interconnected experience.
Yes, yes.
And it is truly incredible when you think about it. So often when I teach Tanya, I'm just like floored, you know?
Mhm.
It's like, what? Like, and how relevant it is. I don't know. It it's really
Amazing.
yeah, it really is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, the interconnected. I mean, it's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's very, very profound, and it's of course it's based in Chassidus and Kabbalah and just and nature, right?
Mhm.
To show
Mhm.
that, and it's the ancestral work. It's why we can go to Poland and we can really stand in deep witnessing of what our people endured. It's why we can go to Nova and stand with deep witnessing and bow from this place of we don't understand. We just can't
Yeah.
understand.
I've been always so scared to go to, like I've never done, like, Poland, Auschwitz, or any of that. I've been to Nova, and I did feel such a profound energy there. I can't even tell you
Yeah.
what it was. It was almost like a super holy, untangible energy, but it's always so scary to me to go and bear witness to something like that. I almost, like, don't know, like, I'm almost scared that I'll be numb, or I won't handle it properly, or I won't feel like, I think the scariest thing is I won't feel anything, and then what does that say about
You
me?
know, Javi, if we're working with this principle of interconnection, and let's say you were to go to Auschwitz and you would feel numb,
Mm,
very likely that's an expression of a collective numbness. Like your
yeah.
numbness, many of us feel numb. Many,
Mm,
how much can we really hold and bear?
exactly.
Making
Yeah.
space for that numbness.
Then leads you to be able to feel.
Exactly. And being with
Yeah.
what's here and being with the intimacy of what's here, yeah, allows something else, maybe something else to open up. And it's so healing and it's so powerful.
Yeah. I think it's basically what you were saying is, like, just being present with whatever is,
Yeah.
and letting that be without the judgment, without, like, all the shoulds that get in the way of what we should be doing and how we should be feeling. And I find that's always, I forget who I was talking to. It was almost like should not be in the English dictionary. Like, take away the should, because it's always usually just not very helpful. Oh, wow. You're such a beautiful person. So thank you for showing us the inside of your soul.
Thank you.
I have one more question. And it's not a question that it just came to me. And I hope I will be able to articulate it properly. It's a little bit of a layered question. I think we're in an era where we're doing a lot of healing, and all of us are being called to understand who we are and to heal the parts of ourselves that are in pain. And there's a lot of different ways to go about it. There has been like the psychedelics, plant medicine, which a lot of psychedelics are not plant medicines. I don't know why we call it plant medicine, but that route, which is helpful for many people. And also, there's something about it that feels to me like not being necessarily patient or speeding up a process, that I have this like feeling in my soul that it's possible to get to that place of openness and healing and understanding and connectedness with the slow, short way, like the meditations, the community, the deep conversations, the Chassidus. Like I feel like Torah and Chassidus gives us the portal to get to that place of where you're connected with your soul.
Absolutely.
So I guess my question is for people who don't want to or connect with psychedelics, and it's such an all the rage and you see it everywhere. And sometimes you're like, should I do that? Should I try that? But then there's like, because I think there's a narrative like, oh, if you want to be connected, if you want to heal, like you almost have to go down this path. And I do feel strongly, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Like, I think there's a way to do that without that. I almost feel like maybe that's the container you're providing.
Yeah. I think that for some people, psychedelics or plant medicine definitely have a role.
Mhm,
Um, and I really feel strongly, and I'm attracted to this language of like the slow, the
mhm.
long, the longer, shorter way. I think that the real work is in the integration and the widening of the vessel, the
Yeah,
widening of the vessel, the widening of the cleat to hold more light and to have the light land even more deeply. And that's slow work. That's really slow
mhm.
work.
Patient.
Yeah, work that has us, yes, needing to be in dialogue with the vertical channel with Hashem, with prayer, with meditation, with ritual practice, with niggin, with all these things, like and talking to Hashem, and it needs to land in our vessel, it needs to land in our soil.
Yeah,
And that also takes slowing down. It takes witnessing and relational work. And it takes honoring what's alive in the nervous system. So if there's numbness, like you talked about,
yeah,
it's honoring that. And medicine is a really powerful portal, but that's not necessarily, medicine is really like, this is what you have to look at. Like
yeah.
this is what's here right now. And this is a different way. And I feel people find their way there if that's what they need. But ultimately, even whatever comes through the medicine, we need to integrate it.
If you have to, right. If it's not integrated, it kind of disintegrates.
Exactly. And so the work is actually drawing it into the vessel. And then the vessel gets stronger and then it attracts more light.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. I always like, I'm so curious and I want to not close my mind off to any ways of doing things, but also not just jump on the bandwagon. And also like, I feel like there's certain things that become like a fad or like the latest and greatest in thing to do. But then when we go back to our teachings and the Torah that is eternal, it's there.
Yeah.
It's all there. And I think there's something to be said for doing that work consciously.
Yes. Anything, doing anything consciously.
Yeah.
Also, our ritual
Yeah.
practice, also like,
Yeah. Anything that you engage with, I think that's where we can all, and I think, and in general, the system can grow is like everything that you're engaging in, do it with intention, doing it with consciousness, do it with, and that's literally what like this chapters of Kavana and Tanya, right? Like Hashem doesn't just want us to be there and to choose him. He wants us to choose him with intention. He wants us to be present, to focus, to know what you're doing, know what you're accomplishing.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. To bring our whole selves up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Adam ki yakir karam Hashem. Bring up yourself. Be invested. Be engaged, your whole self. Even the parts that are hard or shadowy or in pain. It's all welcome.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end. Thank you so much for being here, Yocheved.
Thanks
It's
so much. Thank you
truly
for
beautiful.
having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm honored. It's lovely to be with you.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. There's so much to reflect on this episode. There's so many different topics that we covered. And I encourage you to take this time also to just sit and reflect and think about the things that you heard, the things that you feel, the things that maybe pushed boundaries, the thing that you question or always were curious about. And I think one of the main themes that we talked about in this episode is like living life on the edge. And I really believe that everyone, well, I don't have to believe it. It's a fact that everyone comes down here with a specific purpose and mission and a particular way of executing that mission. And through growing up and understanding and learning, you realize that the world needs all types of people. So it's not like one type of person is better than the other. It's just like we need them all for the world to go round. So we need people that push the boundaries. We need people who live on the edge. We need people who are sticklers for tradition. We need people who look at the world in a black and white way. We need people who are less rigid. We need people who are sharers. We need people who are more private. We need people like you get my drift, right? Everyone is here with a specific mission and a specific way of moving through the world. And I think it's so powerful to understand that. So when you see like different types of people moving through the world in maybe a different way that you would have or that you do, it's because you're not supposed to live that way and they are, right? And also, people are here to awaken, to show something to you that you maybe couldn't see on your own. And I think Yocheved's a really good example of someone who so clearly is meant to live on the edge, is meant to push boundaries a little, is meant to be more out of the box, which can be met with so many different reactions. For some people, it's like, yes, like I see this, I get this speaks to me. And for some people, it brings up a lot of defense and a lot of fear and a lot of judgment, like, oh my gosh, that's not how you do things. You shouldn't do it that way. And there's this and there's that, right? So I just think being curious about other people's way that they live their life and what they bring to the table is pretty incredible. And I think living life on the edge definitely shows up for me in a lot of ways. Like I definitely feel that the life that I have and the gifts and the challenges that Hashem has given me has asked of me to be very out of the box and think differently and let go of some of the narratives that I thought I knew to be true. And I relate to a lot of what Yocheved talks about of, just navigating that desire and that call to, and know that you're supposed to be doing things differently. And I think Yocheved and I, it shows up differently in our lives, and we obviously are very different people, but I can appreciate very much this idea of not seeing things the way that everybody else might see them. And that maybe bringing to the table some unique ideas that might at first feel uncomfortable to some. And that's okay, right? Like not everything we see, do we have to adapt to our own lives? And also sometimes we do need to see things being shown in a different light. And these are the types of things that fascinate me. And Yocheved's story, like, there's so much, I mean, we only had a few hours, but there's so much there. and there's the deeply committed and creative person that Yocheved is, and what she brings to the table of like real, honest, and authentic connection with Hashem. And we know, like, really bringing up women in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, women in Chabad, like for some, the way that women show up in Chabad is so out of the box and women take such a center stage. And for other people, that might look so crazy and out of the box. I think, women within our tradition, it's a topic. It's a topic for a good reason. I think a lot of us in the beginning, when we hear like, oh, women aren't treated well in Orthodox Judaism, or women in the Torah, or women this, like, we're so conditioned to be, well, just to dismiss it. And I think I genuinely believe that women have an exalted position in the Torah, but there are many things that are hard to swallow as a woman. And it's up to us to learn and understand and find your place as a woman in your faith, and to show up with your full self, authentically, feeling embraced and loved and connected, and feeling that there is a space for you in your relationship with Hashem and how you show up. And these are just little parts of the episode that I find myself thinking about and constantly reflecting on. And, I had an interesting experience with a woman in my community, and she was helping me cook in the kitchen. And this story just came to me like, oh my gosh, this actually really fits to what we're talking about. And we're very, very close. And she's someone that always is like somebody who's supportive and helps me a lot in, the big hectic Yontif times. And we were talking, and she was saying, Chavie, like, I really struggle. She's a doctor. She's a very strong woman. And she's like, I really struggle with certain parts of the Torah where I do feel like women are not given maybe the exposure or the recognition that they deserve. And I feel like the Torah is a very male-centered, it's like told through a male perspective, or very male-centered. And she really struggles with that. And I looked at her and I said, I really understand that struggle. I feel like we need to explore that more. I feel like we need to figure that out. Like, let's ask questions. Like, let's explore. Why do you feel this way? Is there something to be said about it? How do you reconcile it? What do we learn? Like, I just like really understood the question and gave it the space. And whatever, we moved on from the topic. And then later in the evening, I get a call, and she calls me and she's like, I just want you to know how much it meant to me that you didn't dismiss my question, and you didn't be like, oh, it's fine, women in the Torah, or like, give all the regular like talking points of why women are very, very treasured and are the best and whatever. But you really took my question seriously, and you didn't have all the answers, but you were open to exploring that with me. And I was like, thank you, Hashem. Like, because I truly, genuinely felt that way, but I'm just so happy that she felt like understood, and that her question had space and it was a valid feeling. And I bring this up because I think it's okay to sometimes have questions and wonder, like, where do we fit in? And they don't have to be dismissed. And you're not a bad person, or you're not a heretic for thinking that you might not understand all the ways that women are included in the Torah, and maybe sometimes wished it were different. Those questions are okay. I think, how do you deal with it? How do you explore? Open yourself up to talking to the people that can shed some light. And I don't know, I kind of went off on a tangent, but I guess my point is that, this whole idea of women in the Torah and women in Yiddishkeit and how we show up, I just want to give space for that whole concept and that whole idea. And maybe we need to spend like a full podcast episode on this specifically. And yeah, I just feel like that was also touched upon in this episode. And I'm trying to think you know what else we discussed, which I really felt kindred spirit, is being a person that has a lot of passion and that brings our attention outside of the home, and sometimes talking about like the sacrifices that our kids make for us and the job that we feel so called to do, and juggling, the age-old juggling motherhood and career, or a purpose or a calling that you feel so deeply inside of you. And I don't think it has to be one or the other, but I also think that we can recognize and realize that sometimes, especially if you're more of a public figure and you share your life and your story with the world, that our kids can absorb some of that, and they do make sacrifices. And I don't think that it's wrong. I think it's just very important to acknowledge and just recognize that that's part of the reality, and also constantly reflect and ask the right questions to ourselves, making sure we're making choices for the right reasons. And, that always is just like constantly checking in with all the parts of ourselves and all our responsibilities and all the things that we want to do and the things that are being asked of us. And I have another story that is coming to mind. We recently had a family reunion, and my father was saying that, when we were growing up, we would have like a lot of guests at the table, and then we were little kids and we were up from the table helping serve and whatever. So he oftentimes put us in like the back of the table, and he's like, I'm reflecting on that, and I feel so bad that I didn't sit you right up next to me. And I just want to just acknowledge that the sacrifice that you made for the guests and the community. And I thought that that was the right way to do it. And maybe now later on, I'm reflecting that I should have kept you guys up front. And it was so touching and so sweet. And I think all of us reflected and were like, well, that was never a problem for us. We never felt like demoted or second class because we were sitting at the back of the table. But that's not the point. The point was that it was a reflection. It was an acknowledgement of the sacrifices that kids make sometimes in being in midst of their parents' career or calling or choices. So I just thought that was like a really beautiful story, and the way that Yocheved shared, where she reflects with her children and thanking them for the sacrifices or the patience that it takes to be part of the journey. So I thought that was something that I really think about and spent some time reflecting on, and can relate very, very much to. So that is my very few thoughts on the episode. I can go on forever, but I do want to get to the voice note section, because we actually have a very fun topic that we put out there. And the question was, fast fashion, necessary evil, love it or hate it? So do you think fast fashion, there's a place for fast fashion? And I have quite a few voice notes to share with a lot of fun and insightful perspectives. So here we go.
Okay, here's my hot take. Fast fashion didn't just ruin the environment, it kind of ruined design too. You see, fashion used to start with an idea, like someone actually thought about the fabric, the fit, the construction. Now it starts with what is already trending and how fast can I copy it? It almost became like a competition of who can copy it the fastest. I don't know if you've noticed, but this is why almost everything in fashion looks the same. It's the same design again and again, made by different brands. And I get it. Like, I get why fast fashion exists and why there's a need for it, mostly because of the huge price gap that there is. Not everybody can afford true designer, or even slow fashion. But the problem is that this is what became the standard. It became the standard to expect cheap, fast clothes being made all the time. And it even created an even bigger problem, which is that people don't even know anymore what they like. Like, they're just chasing trends. They don't even stop to ask themselves, what is your personal style? Do you like this? Is this your style? And I think that is the bigger problem, is that it changed consumerism so much that it doesn't even give designers the time to develop their talent and art in fashion. So yeah, I think over time, The art of design is slowly being lost.
Okay, so that's from Michal Carlebach, who's the owner of Shop Motto and who we actually had as a guest on this podcast, and it was an excellent episode. So you can go back and listen to that if you haven't yet. But Michal's perspective is, I mean, I align with it a lot. I think especially coming from the world of being in fashion and design. And this is my thing. Like, I've been very vocal about how I feel about fast fashion, and I really don't like it for so many reasons. And there is this like huge price gap, but I feel like we keep feeding the beast. And if we didn't feed the beast, there would have to be some kind of equilibrium or reckoning where things would be a little bit more middle ground, where we can not necessarily only buy designer, but there could be affordable clothing that isn't fast fashion, that isn't and not unsustainable and has terrible practices. Like, can we get to that? Is it possible to, like, we say, oh, it's a necessary evil, but what if it wasn't? Like, what if we stopped feeding the beast? That's what I think about. But let's move on to the next hot take.
I used to buy fast fashion just because money concerns. And obviously I love fashion, so I want to keep up with having nice clothes. But something I realized for myself is that not only obviously is it not great for the environment, and it's not great, I think, for our mentality too, to constantly think that we can just keep getting whatever we want all the time. But also the quality of clothing has gone down significantly over the years. So what I've been doing is thrifting as much as possible. Other than like socks, undergarments, and shoes, I almost exclusively thrift now. You can get really reasonably priced clothing that's good quality, that's longer lasting, and better materials. So yeah, not sure that that's a hot take, but that is my opinion.
Okay. I agree with this. And I love what she says about thrifting and vintage shopping. It's so funny because I don't like to thrift and to vintage shop. And I was trying to figure out like why, because I actually love like vintage furniture. I love it in design. Like I love the element of like a story and history, but I just don't appreciate it in my clothing. And I'm always like, oh, but all the cool people thrift. Like all the cool people shop in vintage. And why don't I like it? And why don't I just gravitate towards it? And I think I figured it out. I think, and I would love to like take a poll. The people who love to thrift and who are vintage shoppers, like what's your birth order? Because I think if you're an oldest, which I am, you always got the new stuff. Like everything was fresh for you. So like you're not used to having like hand-me-downs or secondhand or whatever. Like everything, you were the first. So everything you got was new. And I think that tracks. I think if you're obviously this is anecdotal observation I'm making. I have no proof, which I'd be curious to pursue. But I think it's harder for people who are an oldest to like relate to the vintage shopping because it was just never part of our life. Like we always got everything new. And I think if you were like a second or a third child, you were used like hand-me-downs were normal. Like that's what you got. And you can relate to getting stuff secondhand. So sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm an elitist or I can't handle like used stuff. And maybe it's true, but I don't identify with that as a personality. I just feel like it's just not something that I was ever exposed to. So it's just like foreign to me. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. But here's the next.
So I'll give you my slightly heretical take as a fashion nerd, but also as a woman who lived as a single mom for a long time. Fast fashion is a structural necessity under the current economic conditions, but also an environmental disaster. Both things can be true at once. From a socioeconomic standpoint, fast fashion really functions as a price stabilizer, and it gives access to trend appropriate, workplace acceptable, and size flexible clothing for people who genuinely cannot absorb the cost of ethical or slow fashion, especially parents like myself, service workers, anybody whose body or life circumstances change rapidly. Kids' clothes alone make this unavoidable. I'm not buying artisanal trousers for a child who's going to outgrow them by Tuesday. But here's where the system collapses, right? The industry's profit model depends on hyper-acceleration and planned obsolescence. So overproduction isn't a side effect, it's the business strategy. Garments are literally engineered for short lifespans, and consumers are nudged towards 1 to 2 wear behavior. That result is massive textile waste, externalized environmental costs, and honestly, labor exploitation baked into the supply chain. So the moral failure isn't the individual's consumption, like myself, it's the cultural normalization of disposability. Fast fashion used as a tool is defensible, but fast fashion as a recreational activity is not. So the real hot take, telling working people to quote, just shop ethically, unquote, without addressing price, time, or child care constraints is class cosplay. The ethical move isn't purity, it's really restraint, repetition, actually wearing the damn clothes.
Okay. First of all, wow, those are some sophisticated words. I think I understood most of it, but might not have understood all of it. But I love the points. I think it's going back to what I was saying before after Michal's message. It's like we need to change our behaviors. It needs to come from the top. Like the consumerism around it is driving the need to constantly have more, right? Consumer. And then the stuff is not made to last, which then forces you to have to buy more. And that is where the problem is. It's like, it's just this vicious cycle. And I keep wondering, like, how do we step out of it? And I think what Jen is saying here is you have to make ethical choices and conscious choices and buy clothing that you're going to rewear and buy clothing that's not supposed to just last a season. And the fact that we can't get out of it because of cost and size and all those things. Like, why though? Like, we need to make a change. We need to make affordable clothing, not clothing that costs $2, but not clothing that costs $500, and use materials that last. And especially, which is going to bring me to my next voice note about the environment and the horrific working conditions that most of these garments come from. Like, we should not be supporting this.
I can definitely give you my hot take on this. I used to work with individuals that were doing work in like the retail area of sustainability, and once I saw the data around fast fashion and the consumerism around it and the lack of sustainability and how actually terrible this fast fashion is for the planet, I was like, okay, capsule wardrobe only, which fits the stage of my life that I'm at. But I really hope to instill those values also into my own kids, because this idea of buying fast fashion when the materials are often sourced from horrific places, as well as the labor that's done, is just mind boggling. And I do not recommend fast fashion. So that's my hot take.
Yeah, it's like once you start to see, actually, I spent a Shabbos with Razel from that Jewish family, and they travel a lot. And she was telling me about, I think it was somewhere in Africa. I don't remember the exact spot, but it's like where a lot of the dump and garbage goes from fast fashion. And then she sent me a video and a picture of what it looks like. It is horrific. And that's what's happening. And I know I was like, I don't have, like, of course it's not an easy solution. And it's hard because, like, I'm definitely not a capsule wardrobe person. Like, I like to have a lot of variety in my closet. I am very outspoken about my maximalism, but I really try not to buy like fast fashion. And I just try to slowly accumulate and have a closet that I love and things that will last for a very long time. But yeah, I think everyone agrees. I didn't get any messages that was like, "Oh my gosh, I love fast fashion." I think most people agree that it's pretty bad, and a lot of people like agree that it's a necessary evil. And I just have one more to end off with.
Hello. Okay, so I am not a believer in fast fashion for adults. I very, very much believe in quality over quantity. I think filling your closet with good quality pieces, even in basics, really, really go a long way. They last for a long time. You just constantly feel better about yourself. Everything looks better when it's quality, and just so good, timeless pieces are the way to go. With children, however, I'm realizing that that does not work because with kids, I want them to be able to go to school and not worry about what they're wearing, and to be able to explore and run and play and tear things and get messy and not worry about it. So fast fashion, as long as it's ethically made, I think is the way to go with children.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's nothing worse than buying expensive clothing for your kids and then them feeling like they can't actually live their life and get dirty. But like she said, like, doesn't mean it has to be garbage. I feel like sometimes I feel like I come across as like I said before, like elitist, because I come so against fast fashion and I'm not recognizing that there is a very big need for it. And I want to say that I do recognize that there's different ecosystems and ability to spend money on clothing. I just inherently wish that there was a solution and somewhere where we can stop the train on fast fashion, because it's just not okay. Like, yeah, for you to be able to afford a cheap pair of jeans, but like at what cost? For the people in China and in Africa to be in sweatshops, like, is that fair? Like, I almost feel like, yeah, we're so focused on the ability for people to be able to buy cheap clothing because that's a necessity, but at what cost? So maybe we pay a little bit more and you have a little bit less, but we're not having people as slaves providing this really, really cheap clothing. So the whole thing doesn't feel right. And I know that I can sit comfortably in my office and pontificate, but this was a really good topic to explore. I don't, no one's solving the crisis, but it was interesting. And I'm kind of happy to hear that none of the people that responded to that prompt felt like fast fashion was the way to go. It was more like it's hard to live without it. So yeah, that is the tea on fast fashion. And as always, I'm so excited to hear your thoughts, whether it's on this podcast, on the voice notes, on the prompts that I share. I love what we're building here. I love the community. I love hearing people's perspectives. And I honestly, the most fun part of it is to challenge my own thoughts. And when I hear other people's thoughts, it makes me think and it makes me open my own horizons and not be in my own echo chamber. So thank you for everyone who provides that experience, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so this podcast does not happen by itself. The magic takes a whole group of amazing people, and I want to tell you who those people are. So obviously I'm your host, Chavie. Our producer and creative director is Eli Ben-Chion. He keeps me on my toes. He makes sure that I just keep growing and on point and don't miss a beat. He's the best. Audio is edited and mixed by Reed Seeley. Also, unbelievable. He's so cool, calm, and collected. You kind of need that working with me. And the music, which is beautiful, is by Basia Schechter and Shaul Magid. And this is totally unexpected.